The Toronto Blue Jays just lost their most frustrating game of the season against the Houston Astros. It was the series finale, and they ended up dropping it 8-1, but it did not feel that way all the way throughout. So I'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse, and another blowout loss for the Toronto Blue Jays, although it did not feel that way throughout the 9 innings. They were in it all along, and it just fell apart there towards the end. But this game was just super frustrating, and it was a rough loss to bear.
Yeah, probably one of the most frustrating losses that I can even remember over the past 2 seasons. But before we get into that, and we will have lots to say about it, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 7,000. But let's start on a positive note before we get into some of the more frustrating things. With Jose Berrios had a phenomenal outing today, and we'll pop up his stats now. What a game for him! What a bounce back so far start to his season after, especially a good start last outing too. But he went 7 innings today, 3 hits, 2 earned runs. And those earned runs were very, very early in the game, bringing his ERA down to a still whopping 6.23. But what did you see out of Jose Berrios today that impressed you against a very impressive Houston Astros hitting team? And I was just very impressed with him overall.
Yeah, it started off pretty rough as well. In that second inning, you thought things would maybe spiral out of control for Jose Berrios, but then he settled in very nicely. He only got up to 80 pitches through 7 innings, so he could have even gone an eighth inning if John Schneider chose to send him back out there. But his command was good, apart from that 1 inning and that one pitch to Jake Myers. I mean, he realistically he only made one crucial mistake. And for Jose Berrios over the past couple of seasons, I mean, you'll take that every day of the week. So he looked very good today. His fastball was located very well on the corners, and we've been very critical of his fastball, especially his four-seamer, but he found the release point today, and he was very efficient through 7 innings, and he didn't have many strikeouts. He was letting the defense go to work, and that was a byproduct of Jose Barrios understanding which ballpark that he was in. He was pitching to the big part of the field. He was letting them hit it up the middle because he knows that it's very hard to hit a home run in center field at Minute Maid Park. So I was very impressed with what I saw out of him, and hopefully this is another step in the right direction after two great outings in a row.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Second outing in a row where he's really impressed. And like you said, his fastball is getting pummeled, not just this year, but last year. And he located it well today, and that's ultimately what works well for him when he can locate it. And his changeup was working well, his slurve as well. And just overall, we wanted to give him his props early in the video before we go into some of the more frustrating things. But quickly touching on the rest of the bullpen, Zach Pop had a pretty rough outing. Now, Simber gave up a couple of those Pop runs, but just a rough outing from the bullpen. I'm not going to touch on it too much, just I don't know, and that it just spiraled out of control after the inning, which we're about to discuss right now, which was the offense struggles, a lack of focus. And Peter, I'll let you take it over. Give the credit to Luis Garcia, who did absolutely phenomenal. He looked unhittable, but in the eighth inning, we had a chance there to not only take the lead, but to break it open, and we weren't able to do that.
Yes, absolutely. We got to give praise to Luis Garcia. He's had a very rough start to his season. His ERA was about 7.5, 7.7. He did not look good coming into this game. And of course, he has his best stuff against the Toronto Blue Jays. It's just been that type of season so far for the Jays. But he was, I mean, there was nothing that Toronto could have done. He was painting his slider on the outside corner to each and every right-handed hitter. His fastball, he was locating it well. And him too, he was very efficient. Jose Barrios was great, but Luis Garcia was phenomenal today, and he won that pitching duel by a little margin, not by too much. You know, Jose Barrios was very good, went toe to toe with him, but unfortunately, the Jays just looked helpless out there in the box, and it's two ends of the spectrum. The Jays could not cash in a runner with 2 outs or with any outs for that matter. And then the Houston Astros, it's still a 2-1 ball game, and they put together a 6-run inning with 2 outs. So it's just two different sides, and you could tell that the Jays are not a serious ball club, and why they're not taken seriously by a lot of pundits. It's because the Astros can go ahead and put up a 6 spot with 2 outs, and the Jays can't cash anyone in with no outs and the bases loaded. And there's levels to this. They're a championship contending team, and the Jays are trying to get there, and they're not quite there yet.
Yeah, we have. I knew it was going to be a hot take, and honestly, after today's game, it was frustrating. I'll just go there. We'll look at the box score really quickly. A lot of zeros. No hits for Springer, Bichette, Guerrero. Varsho had a hit. Matt Chapman went hitless. Kirk got a clutch hit. And shout out to Whit Merrifield, who continues to hit the ball very well and do the little things. He obviously had a really bad error there, but we'll just let that slide because his offense was producing. But like you said, the big issue here, we have no clips for you guys today, but the big issue and the big thing that really lost us the game was the bases loaded with 0 outs with George Springer coming up. And George Springer he can't buy a hit lately. It's been very unfortunate. He hit a rocket to third base, not his fault at all. And then Bo Bichette, like you said, lack of focus, didn't step into the batting box in time, starting with an 0-1 count against Bryan Abreu, who has a 441 ERA plus, meaning he is well above league average, and he's a phenomenal reliever. And you can't start now. I know the rule is questionable. A lot of people hate it, but you just got to be ready in that situation. And before I let you touch on that really quickly, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had a phenomenal at bat, which ultimately ended in a third out there, which would have been a sac fly if there was less than 2 outs. But that's what lost the game. And like you said, the Jays still have a lot of work to do. I'm not saying I still think the World Series contenders. Just today was a brutal inning. That inning was it was hard to watch.
Well, the talent is second to none. I mean, there's no doubt about the talent. But when your best hitter is coming up to the plate against their best reliever and he's going down 0-1 because he doesn't step into the box in time, I mean, it makes you question where this team's head is at. And they were not serious today. Lack of focus. Matt Chapman got unlucky. But then, Bo Bichette, you got to come in there and pick up your teammate. You can't just not step into the box and go down 0-1 against Bryan Abreu, because then you're not putting yourself in a hole. You're putting your entire team in a hole. Then Vladdy battles his butt off with a 10-pitch at-bat, and it's all for nothing because you're going down 0-1 against a guy who throws 99 with a wipeout slider. And not, it wasn't only Bichette. It happened 3 different occasions in this game. There was a complete lack of focus. And this was a big game. This could have potentially been a momentum shifter for the Toronto Blue Jays going into the Yankees series. But the Yankees win tonight and the Jays lose, not because of a lack of effort, just because of a lack of focus. And it was super frustrating to witness as a fan.
Yeah, and I agree. The Bo Bichette thing, and like I'm going to say, because I know there's going to be a lot of comments about it, we don't necessarily agree with the rule, but it's in place, so you have to be ready and you have to play with it at this point. And
But the Astros aren't doing it. The Astros aren't taking pitch clock violations. Why are they stepping into the box with 8 seconds left and you're not? Get in there.
Yeah, I agree. It was the third time that it happened, and ultimately ended up being it was just hard to watch, and it was very frustrating. One of the most frustrating things that I've watched in a while. And to be honest with you, when Houston took out in the bottom of in the 8th and scored that 6th piece, I was just sitting back and I just accepted defeat at that point. And I don't know, what a weird game. And before we wrap up, we'll quickly touch on some unlucky factors. And before, we'll preface this by saying that, like we just kind of described here, we did not lose this game in any way because of bad luck. It's just we want to touch on a couple things that the Jays have been getting unlucky, and this is kind of just to temper some expectations and some anger, because I know a lot of people will be mad. It happens in baseball. Baseball can be unlucky. What are the couple things you want to touch on specifically in today's game?
First off, the umpires were awful, but that's not the reason why the Jays lost this game. And I don't like to rag on the umpires because it goes both ways most of the time. And if they're bad, they're usually bad for both teams. But I thought today that Whit Merrifield getting caught at second base was just a brutal call, and that set the tone for the rest of the game. That call that was made right there by the second base umpire, and then you have a chance to go ahead and correct it with video replay, and you still don't do that. And I'm usually not very active on Twitter during Jays games, but I was today, and that really ticked me off, and I think that kind of prefaced the way the rest of the game was going to go, and then a couple of bad strike calls. Nothing went the Jays' way today, but still, you got to fight through that, and championship teams find ways to fight through those alternate distractions, and the Jays just they can't do that. They're still a team that is a tier below these top tier teams. The talent, I'm not doubting it, but they got to clean up those little things in their game before they're in those upper echelon with the upper echelon teams there.
Yeah, I think if they clean it up and they continue to work on it, they can definitely be there with the top. And a lot of people, I kind of think they're still at the top, but I understand what you're saying. It was brutal. And quickly to touch on that call at second base, I think the issue was the fact that he even called it out originally, because it's so obvious in hindsight that, I mean, he looked safe by a mile, but if you call it safe, I don't know. The call stood ultimately because there was not conclusive evidence. So I just think the umpires were overthinking it. But I'll let you guys let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. And I guess that'll wrap up the video. This was more of
Yeah.
a rant style video. That won't happen too often. It had to happen today. The game was frustrating. The Jays did some things that were, I don't even know, uncharacteristic, especially with all the pitch clock violations. But we'll get through it. We have the Bronx on Friday against the New York Yankees, who, like you said, won today. The Rays won as well today. So all the AL East teams, it's a tough division. So the Jays are going to have to clean things up if they want to continue to compete. And anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
Yeah, this game just struck a nerve for whatever reason. And I've been on record saying that I don't let the Blue Jays affect my personal life, but my night will not be as good as I thought it would be today, just because of that game. It was a rough loss. You never want to see your team go down like that, but hopefully they can come back on Friday and a well needed off day tomorrow because this game was just it was all over the place for the Jays and not how you want to be playing going into a big series against a division opponent.
Yeah, we have Yusei Kikuchi taking them out on Friday, so hopefully he can get a win, and we'll see you then.